Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Parkinson's Podcast. Welcome to the Hear, Hear Parkinson's Podcast, where you will hear from special guests covering the world of Parkinson's with a deep dive on the World Parkinson Congress and a look at how the WPC has helped make extraordinary progress in the Parkinson's community by creating space for people with Parkinson's to have a seat at the table.
Here, 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 here. We're up and running with another fresh episode in the podcast. Here, Parkinson's podcast for Phoenix, Arizona, because we're all looking forward to going to Phoenix in May 26 and gather everyone there. And so we're doing a series of podcasts here. My name is Edgar Valdmanis. I'm one of 15 global ambassadors for the Congress, and happy to be running this show. I have my regular co-host, Eli Pollard, with me. Hello, Eli.
Hey, Edgar. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here, especially today. Very excited for our special guest.
Good. And our special guest is Omotola Thomas. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Edgar. Good afternoon. It's really lovely to be here.
Good. Very often we let the guest actually start the show running, telling a little bit about yourself and your relationship with Parkinson's.
Okay. My name is Omotola Thomas. I am a person living with Parkinson's. I got diagnosed in 2016 at the age of 35, even though my symptoms started, I think, 5 or 6 years before that. I'm a mother of two. My son is 18 and my daughter is 15. And I'm also the founder and the chair of trustees of an organization called Parkinson Africa, which is a charity that I established officially in 2020 to support and empower Africans impacted by Parkinson's disease.
I will add a full disclosure that after Omotola attended the World Parkinson Congress in 2019 in Kyoto, we also invited her to join the board of directors at the World Parkinson Coalition. So she sits on the board of directors at the WPC. So everyone's clear where she is involved. But we invited her solely based on her amazing work in the community and what she does, Parkinson's Africa and beyond, to be part of this podcast program.
Thank you, Eli.
Right. I'm a bit curious there. Parkinson's Africa, how many countries does it cover in Africa?
Technically 54 countries, but I think the question you're asking is how many countries are we actively operational in, and that's 9 countries right now.
Right.
I would say, is that mostly just because there are other countries on the African continent that just don't have Parkinson's organizations or associations, or are you still working to identify more? Or are there some that just haven't yet come on board yet?
I think it's a mixture of all the things you said. So they are, and it's also, in part due to our resource constraints and capacity, being a very small organization. So we're building outwardly, slowly, but surely, so like you said, there are many countries. We're starting with the countries that we either have established networks in or that we know that they have. And when I say established networks, it doesn't have to be a support group. It could be a neurologist, or patients, or it could be a support group, like you said. But given the resources we have, we're just starting with the organizations that either with the countries that we have established networks in.
Right. And which are the couple of largest countries then represented?
let me see if I can get through this. Nigeria, I'm going to say that first. That's where I was born and raised. Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Cameroon, South Africa, Egypt, that's 7, Tanzania, and I don't know, did I say Ghana?
No.
No?
9.
Well done.
Oh, but that is quite a nice spread then
Yes,
across the continent.
yes.
Yeah, north, south, east, west. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
South Africa.
So, Omotola, you and I first met in New York City. You came to our office with Carl.
Yes.
He introduced us. He said he thought it was you were someone I should meet. And at the time, you had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, but you hadn't attended a World Parkinson Congress. What was the first Congress you attended, and how did you end up there, and what was that experience like?
So my first Congress was Kyoto in 2019. Am I correct? That Kyoto was 2000. Yes. So my first Congress was Kyoto 2019. Like you said, Carl was the person who introduced me to WPC. I came to New York and I met with him, and he said the same thing, that I had to meet you. And I'm so glad I did. And, from there, I started to research. And then I got invited to speak about living well with Parkinson's. And honestly, it was an amazing experience. Parkinson's can be a very lonely journey for many people. And just being able to come there and be exposed to thousands of people that are connected to Parkinson's disease was an incredible experience for me. And it's not, like you have this whole variety, the different flavors of people at the Congress. You have Parkinson's advocates, care advocates, researchers, scientists, pharmaceutical companies, charitable organizations, and other, and a different mix of people. So just having that opportunity to be in that mix, it does something. It builds a sense of solidarity, and you realize at these meetings that you're not alone, and that was a very powerful thing for me. I am very supported by my family, my immediate and extended family, but I can't say that, especially at that first Congress that I attended at that time, that they fully understood how the disease impacts me, the things that go through my head, the sense of inadequacy that I was feeling, the anxiety, the depression, the apathy. As much as they love and care for me, I didn't, just being in the Congress and just being in the midst of other people who I knew and understood what I was going through was a very powerful experience for me.
Good. Well, that's what I've been saying a couple of times, or numerous times already, that it is as you say, the meeting other people. We're not alone. Coming from Norway, Norway in itself is not a big country, and naturally, again, we don't have too many members in the Norwegian Parkinson's Association. We have estimated 14 or 15,000 people with Parkinson's in Norway. Out of those, we have 6,000 plus who are members in our association. So it's not a big group. And then coming to the World Congress and seeing that, hey, we are actually quite a lot here. And as you said, Omotola, the spread across the background, having the researchers, the doctors, the nurses, physiotherapists, speech therapists, etc., all in one room, all on one floor, is a very positive experience, I would say.
Yeah, and the opportunity that it gave me, that both I've been to two congresses now. Spain, 2 years ago was the last one in 2022. But the opportunity that it gives, for many, especially those who are not at the forefront of the advocacy line, is you have immediate access, to researchers and neurologists and scientists that you ordinarily would not have access to. You see them walking across in the hallway. You get to walk with them to some sessions and ask them questions. You get to listen and get firsthand front row seats to the latest research that's going on in the Parkinson's community. It's a very unique and positive experience and opportunity.
I'm curious, Omotola, so you attended Kyoto. Did you know when you went to the World Parkinson Congress in Kyoto, did you already have a vision of launching Parkinson's Africa? Were you already sort of chewing on that idea? And then, yeah, I mean, kind of yes or no. And then also, how did the WPC then inform that work?
Yes, so before I attended Kyoto, so I got diagnosed in 2016. Kyoto was in 2019. And I think late 2016 was when I first started volunteering and for Parkinson's charities and getting into the advocacy space. So by 2019, or shortly before then, I already knew that I wanted to start an organization because at the time, and even now, there's a lot of underrepresentation of African voices. There's inequities in terms of access to knowledge, research, education, and treatment options. So I knew that as a Nigerian, as an African, I wanted to do something to help people who would have felt the way that I felt, which was isolated when I first of all got diagnosed. And I didn't know any other African. I literally did not know any other African who was struggling with this illness, So I knew I wanted to do something. But the very interesting thing that happened was when I did get to the WPC and I gave my talk. I know you and I have talked about this, afterwards. A gentleman and his wife came up to meet me, and they're from Lebanon. This was Farah and Kodor Shore, and they were just talking to me and asking me questions. They told me about their experiences in Nigeria, and so that connection was established there. But to cut a long story short, that connection that I made at the WPC led on to them sponsoring, I think it was over 2 years of access to free medication for Parkinson's patients in Nigeria for over 2 years, for over 200 patients. Yeah. And that all came to be because of me meeting them at the WPC. So you just never really know the types of people that you will get to meet. You never really know who you will get to connect with and what impact they will have. And it was, the medication that they funded was the very first project or program that Parkinson's Africa ran. And I will never forget that or what they did.
That's fantastic. As you say again, you never know who you're gonna bump into, and how and what impact it will have. It's also one of the things that I keep mentioning is you don't know who you're gonna run into because they're all there, and as I've also said on some occasions, is it's not like any other World Congress where you have VIP rooms and all the hot speakers are tucked away behind closed doors. At the Parkinson congresses, they are all there on the same floor
Yeah,
with you. They're standing in the
exactly.
same queue for the same lunch bag.
Exactly.
Lunch for everybody. It's equal equity with the lunch service. You know,
Exactly.
yeah, no, and that's certainly by design. We want everybody together. That's the whole point. So, Omotola, on the medication, not to go down a rabbit hole, but I would love to just hear from you an update. I do hear from a lot of organizations across the African continent that it is very difficult within many of their governments to get the kinds of medications that they need in their healthcare systems. Like, I spoke to the team at Parkinson's Ethiopia last week, and they were saying their biggest challenge is they cannot get medications. Is this still and on the number one, is that kind of the number one ongoing challenge for people with Parkinson's in Africa, just getting access to even the basic medications? Is that what you feel is kind of the biggest challenge?
Yeah, most definitely. I was speaking with Professor Kubadijo. I think you introduced me to her
Yep.
as well many years ago, and I was trying to gauge, like what programs and projects, we could do at Parkinson's Africa that would best fit the, meet the needs of her patients, or just generally trying to pick her brain. And her her response was just generally, all these other projects and programs are great, they're impactful, but what people need the most right now and don't have access to is medication. And medication it can get quite costly in certain parts of Africa for people, and there are times when people have to choose between medication and what types of food they buy or other necessities. So the answer to your question is yes, it very much is still an ongoing issue across many parts of Africa
But,
for many, many, many people.
but getting medication could mean several things. One, it's not actually to be found. Two, you can get it, but it comes with a cost, which is a challenge for you guys then. Is it actually getting the medication, or is it the cost?
It's everything. It's availability, affordability, accessibility, and acceptability. So are the drugs available, readily available? And the answer is no, not across all parts. There's some parts, in some developed areas that you can get it, but with ease. But then, many people in those areas may not necessarily be able to afford the medication. So it's a bit of a mix of everything, but the biggest challenge of the three or four things that I mentioned: affordability, availability, and accessibility. The biggest issue is affordability, being able to afford the medication.
Right.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, I do know there are a lot of countries that just their own healthcare systems don't have the medications. Like the group I talked to in Ethiopia last week, they said that even just they're working on policy work and to actually just get their own government within the healthcare system to stock the medications that people need. That was their number one challenge. And then it's probably, even once the government then has it stocked within the healthcare system, then the second, affordability would then potentially be a challenge as well. It's is there anything, Omotola, that any of our listeners and our global community can do to support your efforts? Is there like letter writing campaign? Are there policy things that people can do? Because, it's one thing to give one person medication. That's great. But, that's not a long-term solution, right? Getting medications donated from someone. It's better to actually have policy changes and have governments stock this. But are they, is there anything we can do in the community to support campaigns and work going on the African continent from outside as non-Africans? Is there anything we can do?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would ask that people reach out to us, go to our website, www.parkinsonsafrica.org. If you're willing and able to help, obviously, money is the biggest factor. So we can receive donations that are restricted funding towards medication. We already have a good setup. We work and partner with the World Parkinson's program in Canada, and their sole focus is to provide medication. So they're set up. We aren't set up from the health medical perspective to ship medication from one location to another. So we partner with the WPP and with what's it called, neurologists and pharmacies in each of these different countries. We're also working with with the PD Avengers. We have a working group. I haven't been there I haven't been there in a little bit, but I know that we're working with them on a medication equity panel or forum or how do I put this? It's the medication equity group that last year looked into different ways. It's a very complex and complicated issue, an expensive issue to scale up. So you might be able to find solutions where you help a bunch of people for a small amount of time, but being able to scale those solutions is what is quite problematic and difficult. So we haven't found a solution specifically for that, but if anybody wants to get in touch with us, please go to parkinsonsafrica.org.
Right. So this becomes another reason for a large number of us to go to Phoenix and meet up, because this is a very different perspective from how it is in Norway. Medication is available. It is basically affordable because actually, when you have a chronic disease and need a medication for that, the government sponsors more or less 100% of it. You have to reach a threshold of expense, which is in euros, it would be about 300 euros or so. And once you pay that, once you reach that threshold, you get the medication for free for the rest of the calendar year. And again, doctors we keep complaining because not all of us get to see a neurologist twice a year as we're supposed to. The majority still does, but the minority that gets only one visit keeps complaining. And we keep complaining because naturally, when 5 million people are spread thinly across the country, not everyone has a neurologist sitting next door. Those of us living in the larger cities do have a number of people that live in more rural areas don't necessarily have a neurologist next door. So we keep complaining about that as well. And I think it will be a wake-up call for myself and my Norwegian colleagues to go to Phoenix and realize that things are different in other countries. And I think that alone is a big reason for going and to meet people and realize that things do differ from country to country.
I would say, I would just add to that, and I know this is one of Eli's, I'm assuming it's one of her favorite moments from Kyoto, which was when a bunch of us, from the YOPD subset of Parkinson's came together. And, we just it was an open floor conversation, discussion. And that meeting has led to, there's been many things that have come out of that meeting. One of them is the fundraiser for people with young onset Parkinson's that was done for Kyoto and is running for, that was done for Barcelona and is running for Phoenix right now as well. And I think, I don't remember how many, I'll let Eli talk on the numbers, but the money that was raised in Barcelona funded a number of people with YOPD. And then, so there's another fundraiser going on now. And then, what else did I want to say? I can't remember, it's gone out of my head. But yes, I just wanted to highlight the fact that, the WPC is an opportunity for different groups of people. And I think what I was trying to land on was, my hope is that for Phoenix, if we can get a similar group, like similar group for this issue on medications, and it doesn't have to be just, Africans or, people that it doesn't have to be just Africans that are there, maybe get together a group of people and have discussions on how we can influence policy changes and how we can, maybe people with connections to pharmaceutical companies or, manufacturing companies that could help us see different ways how these drugs could be manufactured in the countries, because I believe that way we should be able to get them at a cheaper price as opposed to exporting them. So just different ideas like that. But, the WPC is a great opportunity for these types of connections and discussions and networks.
Yeah, that was, I wasn't sure what you were going to talk about, Omotola, but right, that gathering of people with young onset Parkinson's, it was completely organic. It was, I had been approached actually by our friend in Norway, Anders, who came to me and said, oh, there are a lot of people with young onset Parkinson's, but we haven't had a formal sort of meet and greet. Can you give us a room? And it was literally the last day. It was the Friday. And I kind of found a room and just said, yeah, you have a room. And from that gathering, there were just so many sparks that came out of that gathering. I mean, just the PD Avengers came out of that, the Facebook fundraiser to bring other YOPD people to the meeting. And when I ask people, why do you contribute to a fundraiser to help other people with young onset Parkinson's? I always love that, people say, well, the WPC experience was so unique. It kind of changed my life. It changed my trajectory in the Parkinson space. I just want other people to have the same opportunity that I had. And for me, that's just so, our community is amazing. You guys already know that because you're both in the community, but I'm just always so, just always touched by the thoughtfulness and the care and the consideration that I hear from people within our community. People have an amazing experience. They want other people to have the same amazing experience. So then they go out and fundraise to support other people to come in and have that experience. And the reality is we see the WPC over and over being a springboard for activism and advocacy, which I say a lot. I've said a couple times on this podcast, but it's true. It's true. Like, it changes the way that people think about their role within the community, and it builds that network, and they leave inspired to do things. So it's always very exciting for me to see what people do, not just people with Parkinson's, but the researchers and the clinicians as well. So to see sort of how this has changed them. How do you think it changed you, Omotola?
WPC.
Yeah.
I think, how do I put this? I think for me, the connection and that I mentioned at the beginning with the founders of the FAR Foundation made me understand. Sorry. Are we going to be able to edit this part out?
No, this is Parkinson's. We're just having a conversation here. So the FAR Foundation, I'll just repeat that. Yeah. So what did they make you realize, or that connection?
I am having a brain freeze at this time.
Oh, we can come back. We can come back to FAR Foundation. I'm curious, Edgar, you're our host of this podcast. How did the WPC change you?
I was actually going to another answer here, but it does apply to myself as well. It's gone from someone should do something about this to I will do something about this. And that leads on to one of the more fun questions, Omotola. There are several people going to go biking to Phoenix. Have you considered joining the bike crowd?
No, I have not. Or rather, yes, I have, and I have decided that I don't think it's particularly for me. Yes, but kudos to them. I think what they're doing is incredible, and I'm looking forward to standing and cheering them in as they cycle in. I want to go back to the question that you asked me, Eli. So I think one of my greatest concerns, and we talked about this before this interview, is cognitive issues that I get from time to time, and when my brain just freezes and I am not able to articulate myself as fluidly as I would want to. And normally, I would be absolutely mortified by the last 60 to 120 seconds of this interview. But I'm going to use that to answer the question that you asked me, which is one of the things that I feel or that I felt while I was at the WPC, that I at both congresses, that it's okay to be myself, that it's okay for me not to be perfect, that it's okay to have, cognitive blocks or brain freezes, or it's okay to shake, because I was in a community of people that understood this illness, this disease and its symptoms. I left feeling that it's okay to be me and to have my symptoms, and that I should not be embarrassed by them. So I don't feel mortified as I probably would have a couple of years ago.
Good. I think that's also a wonderful experience there, as you say, to not feel mortified by this, but that is what I have become. It is Parkinson's disease, does it? And you just have to live with it. That is also going back to like the Swedish movie Run Uje Run, about the musician that gets the diagnosis and shares with no one, where it's obvious that he would be much better off sharing, going home to his family and saying, yeah, I went to the doctors today and I got a Parkinson's diagnosis. This means that I will be able to do this in the future still. There are a couple of things that I may not be able to do anymore, but that is part of the unfortunate package.
So if I had to put it in one sentence, and I would say the WPC changed me in a way that it gave me the ability to accept, not be defined by, but to accept and work around or work with the challenges that Parkinson's has brought to my life.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. We're getting
I
towards.
will also say, wait, one comment before we start to wrap things up here. I will also say, just from my perspective, as somebody who does not have Parkinson's, but who has been now working in this space for more than 20 years, I think it's a combination, Omotola, of one, like you said, you've been now in this space with lots of people and learned to accept who you are. But I think that's also part of the aging process. I mean, just the older I get, the less I care about other people's opinions. And I could say that in a more crude way, but I'll just say I just don't care about some other people's opinions anymore. And I'm much more forgiving and kinder to myself
Yeah.
the older I get, which I think that there's a combination of you've got the layered in with the Parkinson's and you're learning to be more forgiving and understanding. But it also just comes with just age and experience where just life is way too short and we're also hard on ourselves. We got to be nicer to ourselves, even without Parkinson's. We just have to accept that, things don't always go the way we plan. So I appreciate that and your honesty and vulnerability in sharing with us that you would have been mortified a couple of years back. But that's kind of part of the show. And I think that's why we have so much fun when we have these conversations. At least I'm saying that from my perspective. I don't know if Edgar agrees, but that's how I feel.
Yeah. I'll chime in on that one. Getting near to the end of this talk, Omotola, two exit questions. One is you're shipwrecked. You're stranded on this deserted island. Not very much to be found there, but there is actually a record player, but unfortunately no records. And then you sit there thinking, if I could just have one record to play on this record player, which would it be? Totally free choice between a single or an album, but one record that you would like to play sitting on your deserted island.
I don't remember the name of the album, but it's the artist or an artist called Hillsong. They're a Christian band, and for me, many of their songs help me get through very difficult and challenging periods of my life.
What was the name of the band again?
Hillsong United.
Hillsong. Yeah, I mean and if you're trapped on a deserted island, you're going to need some support to get through that challenge.
Yes.
I love that.
Good. And the last question is: you're stuck in an elevator between two floors. Who do you want to be stuck with?
Just for a short time, not forever. You get 10, 15, 20 minutes to have a chat with anyone, living or dead, no time barriers. Who would you?
Kevin Hart. I find him as really funny, and I think there's many of his jokes will probably take my mind off the seriousness of whatever situation is in there. So I love Kevin Hart.
I love that. A little bit of humor at a time of distress. We all could use that. That's a great answer. I love it.
Good. That really wraps it up. Thank you for taking the time with us today, Omotola, and looking very much forward to meeting you in Phoenix well, it's not a few months, it's like 14, 15 months from now, but really looking forward to that.
Same here.
Thank you.
Same here, and thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Here Parkinson's podcast. If you would like to experience the next World Parkinson Congress for yourself, to feel and see the change in real time, save the date to join us from May 24th to the 27th, 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. Learn more at WPC2026.org. This podcast series is made possible with support from Blue Rock Therapeutics.